Okay, awesome. Today I want to talk a little bit about competitive advantage. Competitive advantage are the attributes that allow an organisation to outperform its competitors. There are generally two kinds of things that feed into competitive advantage. One is having a lower cost way of doing something. Another is having differentiation, a way that you particularly stand out from the competition. And what I really want to ask is, where does open culture fit into that framework, right? Is open culture a way that we differentiate ourselves, or is open culture a way that we achieve lower cost? Because I believe that open culture is a big part of what we are as a business, and I hope to show that it gives us a competitive advantage. So you might logically think that it would kind of fit under differentiation, because it's kind of, it is different, isn't it, right? There's the word different right there. But the important thing to bear in mind is that clients don't care about the back end. Clients do care about results. Last week I would say open culture it's the method that we use, it's the way that we choose to excel at what we do. So it's our back end, it's our technology, it's our stuff that's under the hood. Clients aren't really interested in that, right? What they want to know about is, how is it going to benefit them? How is it going to achieve better results? So if open culture is going to form part of our competitive advantage, it's going to have to come here under lower cost. I'm actually going to replace lower cost with this diagram here, which you might remember from last autumn. This is the value quadrants. Right? This is the way in which you can increase value, the 4 different ways in which you can increase value. So it's not just about lowering cost, it's also about being able to do these other things. And my question here is really, how and why is it? And also remember that value can be goodwill or return on investment. So it can be stuff that generates money for the client, or stuff that kind of generates relationship and good feeling. So what I want to ask is, how and why is it that open culture fits into the value quadrant? To answer that question, I'm kind of going to go to the other end of a thread, and then I'm going to loop my way back. So on Tuesday this week, I went to an awesome workshop at Makers Academy. It was run by an organisation called Reboot, who I'm hoping to do some training with. And the title of the workshop was Mental Health and Entrepreneurship. It was a workshop with Jerry Collusion, who's the CEO of Reboot and kind of a coaching figure. And he had these 3 questions that he asked. How are you? No, really. How are you? And the interesting thing that I found in this room, actually that isn't 3 questions, it is 2 questions in a statement. I'm channeling my inner down there. What was interesting was the effect that basically putting these questions into a room of founders, which was kind of mainly the demographic, right? It's mainly kind of founding CEOs. At the start of a 4-hour session, kind of dropped a pebble into a pond, and the ripples kind of spent 4 hours working their way out, and quite a lot of people left feeling that their life had been changed from these questions. Right? And part of the reason for that is that actually really finding out how someone is, really finding out what's going on for them, it's not something that we often have the opportunity to do. Right? A lot of people carry around a lot of stuff. So, maybe there are times when you feel some of these things, right? Like effective, purposeful, determined, happy, great. And if you do feel those things, super. I also feel some of those things. I feel some of those things now. But do you also ever feel any of these things? Confused, overwhelmed, anxious, depressed? If you do, me too. I'm feeling some of those things now, right? I'm having a day-to-day where I'm feeling quite anxious. I've also been having a week where I've been feeling really overwhelmed by my work. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how to do it, I don't feel that what I'm doing is worthwhile. How do I find meaning? How do I find value? How do I help people? Right? The point is, this stuff is okay. Right? If you feel any of these ways, know that you are not alone. You're not alone. Right? Lots of people feel this way. Life is a maelstrom of changing emotion. And emotions can also be contradictory. Right? Scientific skepticism, I think this is a beautiful example. If you set out on a scientific experiment, you're 100% committed to the success of the experiment. You want to do it as absolutely well as you can. But you're also 100% committed to as it were, the failure of the experiment, in the sense that the whole thing, you might decide that the thing that you set out to test was actually false. And you have to maintain that complete commitment to the thing that you're doing, but also a belief that the thing you're doing might, in the end, turn out to be a waste of time because you proved that it was the wrong thing. And those contradictory feelings, I think, can exist in the kind of love-hate relationship that I think it's normal to have with work. Work can be very stressful. You know, as I said, like, I have days like when I'm feeling anxious and overwhelmed and like I don't know how to contribute. But at the same time, I have an unwavering commitment to the work and the organisation, the people. I love my job and I'm very happy to have it. And I can feel both of those things at the same time. So my response to kind of the complexity of the feelings and how we deal with that is just to say, you know, it's okay, you're not alone. Other people feel the same way. This is normal. And you know, like the heckler might say, well, that's kind of easy for you to say. So I thought it might be useful to draw a little bit on my story. I've kind of been waiting for an opportunity to shoehorn this into GrantTree Fundamentals, so it's kind of part of our record as a company, because some people know this, but some people don't, and I think it would be useful for people to know. So I joined the company 18 months ago in the summer of 2014, and at the point that I joined the company, I had been off work for almost a year. Prior to working here, I'd been working in PR, doing kind of project management and client management. And I had been suffering from depression for a long time. I'd been depressed for about kind of 15 years, more or less. And eventually it just got to a point where I couldn't really carry on. I couldn't really cope with life. And there was a day that I went into work and I sat down at my desk, and as soon as I sat down, I started crying. And I basically couldn't stop crying for about 2 hours. So I just had to go home and deal with that. Actually, I went to my mum's house because it was closer. And there's a beautiful bit in Brené Brown's talk on vulnerability, which is on people and culture. I'm sure it's pinned there. It's a fantastic video. And she talks about the day that she had her breakdown. She says, you know, like what my therapist calls my spiritual awakening, but I call it my breakdown. There's a very interesting follow-up video. She also talks about what it felt like standing on a TED stage in front of an audience with a massive screen with just the word breakdown behind her. And in some ways, like, it was a kind of spiritual awakening, because it led to me getting better, right? First of all, I spent some time wandering around, feeling a bit lost and confused and broken. And then I spent some time getting really excellent therapy. And then I spent some time feeling repaired, but sort of, it was very hard work, and I still felt kind of lost and confused. And it was in that context that I found myself arriving at GrantTree. And one of the things that has happened over the last 18 months, that is not entirely due to work, but is partly due to work, is I've begun to feel better, right? Which is how I ended up looking like this. You know, because the point of this is that, you know, a semicolon is something that you could use when you could use a full stop. And a full stop marks an end, and a semicolon marks continuation. You know, in the midst of the kind of maelstrom of the breakdown, I had times when I was feeling suicidal. Didn't actually make a suicide attempt, but I had a plan and I had a note, and things were, you know, like quite scarily real for me. And I've come a long way from there, and I sincerely hope that I'll never find myself back there again, because I've come to a point now where I love life, and I don't want to give up a second of it, no matter how irritating or frustrating it is at any particular point in time. So what's the point of this story, right? Oh, it's not that one. Am I talking about becoming happy? No, I'm talking about becoming whole. Right, so one of the things for me, one of the reasons why GrantTree fits into this story and fits into the semicolon, is that it's a very nourishing environment, it's a very nurturing environment to work here. And having an open culture in some senses is about creating the conditions for becoming whole. And you know, this is not what we do, right? We're not a factory that produces whole people, you know, people who have the property of wholeness. Right? That's not our business. But why is it nevertheless an important part of what we do? I think it's for a couple of reasons, right? Irrespective of the kind of personal benefit of feeling whole and the way that empowers you to go about living your life. You know, who do clients want to work with? Right? Particularly when you think about a service business, when you think about knowledge work, consultancy. Clients want to work with people who are honest, sincere, confident, who give a shit about what they want, who build a good, rewarding, open relationship and dialogue with them. How do you think you get all of that stuff in a relationship with a client? Right? Is it about I teach you some techniques for confidence, or I teach you some ways of being sincere? Or do you get this stuff from, rather than pretending, from it actually being real, from this being the way that you are? right? So, that was the kind of, we started this thread with looking at kind of feelings and how being able to be open about feelings and feelings being okay as a kind of route into wholeness, and how open culture is kind of about creating the conditions for wholeness. And, we end up joining the two threads together, and we end up with something like this, a wonderful Mobius strip. And for me, this is a great symbol, again, this is totally stolen from the workshop earlier in the week, of wholeness. Because in a Mobius strip, the inside is the outside, right? So in an organization where there is genuinely a culture of wholeness, the inside is the outside. The way we are with our clients is the way that we are with each other. Open, honest, sincere, transparent, empathetic. We give a shit about the other person's needs. We want to help them, right? We want to build good relationships. But it goes further than that. Wholeness is also about saying that we are in the business as we are outside the business. Yeah, and of course, we have to put on some professionalism when we're face-to-face with the client, etc. Of course, but what I'm saying is, it's not about saying that work is the place, because this draws into the conversation that we were having last week about personal purpose, and where personal purpose fits into the world of work and GrantTree, right? I'm not saying that work is the place in which you find and fulfill your personal purpose. What I'm saying is that going out and filling your personal purpose is a route into wholeness. It's a route into being the person who you most want to be. And that work should be a space in which you're not held back from doing that. In fact, you're encouraged to do that. Work is not the only place to do that, but if you want to be authentically whole with clients, you have to kind of be authentically whole, not just here, but in your whole life. So there's this kind of lovely symmetry. And in some ways, this talk also has a little bit of the kind of quality of a Mobius strip, because we're back at the beginning, having gone through kind of feelings and wholeness. Well, it's not that one. It's not the one that advances to the right. It looks like it should be, but it isn't. It's that one. Yeah, we're kind of back to here. So how is it that we get competitive advantage from open culture? It's in two ways. It's by working better with each other, and it's by working better with the client. Working better with each other decreases our cost base. It's a way in which we find efficiency. Working better with the client is the way in which we grow our income. We grow the value that we add, right? By being, by focusing on the client's needs, etc. So all of the stuff that kind of has come up in growth fundamentals, right? These things are part of our competitive advantage. The collusion cycle. This is competitive advantage, right? Understanding that this is how conflict arises, internal to the business and with the client. The pyramid of change. This is competitive advantage. Understanding that actually this bit here at the top, correction, i.e. giving feedback, has to be a smaller piece of the puzzle than all of the rest of this stuff. If other people are behaving in ways that you don't like within the organization, don't just jump to telling them about it. Think, have I done all of these things first? This is the effective way to build teams. The third story, right? This is competitive advantage. Understanding how to negotiate difference with the client and with ourselves, right? Two mindsets, being in and out of the box. This is competitive advantage. All of this other stuff, this is the slide from last week, the stuff that we've learned over the last 6 months, all of these different things form part of our competitive advantage, the way that we can reduce our cost base and increase the value that we add to clients. And that's kind of separate from saying that all of this stuff has a benefit to us personally in the way that it creates the conditions for us to feel whole, in the way that it creates the conditions for us to feel aligned with our purpose, alive, happy to be alive, thankful, loving every moment of our lives, being loving with every moment of our lives. So I want to end with a fantastic story that Jerry shared at this workshop, and the only frustrating thing about it is that I can't remember the name of the person or the company that it's about, so I have to find it out, but it's stuck with me. In the kind of Q&A session at the end of this workshop, some of the people who were still a little more kind of skeptical about the sort of stuff that he was talking about, because he basically spent 4 hours persuading some skeptical founders of the value of the stuff that we've been looking at over the last kind of 6 months, like check-ins, empathy, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And, there was a guy who put his hand up, and it was a totally fair question. He was saying, well, this is great in the context of this room now, but I'm going to have to go back and deal with my team and deal with my investors, and, to what extent does all of this stuff help me? And Jerry told this story. He said there was a woman who was at one of his kind of coaching retreats, and her business was a startup, and what they do is that they provide healthy food for startups. So that if you're kind of having like a picnic, it takes you away from your desk, you all go and sit together and you eat something that's not junk food. And in the course of his workshop, he was encouraging her to think about her shadow. We've talked about this before, the idea of kind of surface and shadow, the stuff that you hide from yourself, the stuff that kind of you don't like. In looking at the stuff that was in her shadow, she started talking about an experience that she'd had in middle school. She was American. And she said in middle school, she didn't have any friends. She was very lonely. And it got to a point where she was so lonely that at lunchtime she was taking food from the cafeteria and going and eating it in the toilets on her own, so that she could have complete privacy. And as she was saying that, there was this sort of penny drop moment, and she realized that her whole business that she had created, without realizing it, was in response to this experience. She didn't want to be sitting, she didn't want anybody to be lonely sitting on their own in a little toilet cubicle. She wanted people to get away from their desks and socialise. And Jerry was very keen to stress this is not a direct result. But he said that after she came to that workshop, her business subsequently raised $8 million of investment. He's like, I told her that she should lead her pitch deck with this story, and that this is why she was doing the business, and that she should go to VCs who are, because he basically said there are two kinds of VCs. There are VCs who bet the horse, who like look at the business, and there are VCs who bet the jockey, look at the kind of founding team. He's like, go to VCs who bet the jockey, tell them that story. VCs are people, they have hearts, somebody will give you money. And so she didn't want to do that, but in understanding her relationship with her stuff, and embracing some of her own wholeness, and understanding how that created her relationship with her business, that gave her confidence. Because true confidence comes from wholeness, from being authentic, from being the person who you most want to be. I'm really going to end with a question, which is this, which is, whose permission are you waiting for to be the person that you want to be? This is an environment of open culture where you're encouraged to find that person and be that person. You only have a limited time on this planet. Don't waste it. Questions or comments?
That was wicked.
Thanks. Stuff on your mind generally, not necessarily related to this.
Now, I like the way you actually related personal issues or personal problems back to business and how we can create a better environment within each other, and actually shows that how we can make a business excel in the future. So I think it's well presented.
That whole thing about competitive advantage, I think a lot of it, that's kind of building that relationships within work. How do you see that kind of being shown to our clients?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we can get on really well. We can make it really efficient within GrantTree, but how do we make sure that our clients can see that and that?
Just to very quickly piggyback on the end of that one, as well, because it's an excellent point, and we're talking at the moment about doing value adds for big clients. Do you think that kind of being more, not open, but being more kind of shouting about like exactly what you've just said would demonstrate a value add to a client as well?
No, because I think that this is, by and large, this is all the back end, right?
Yeah, okay,
so we don't tell the clients about the detail of this, we show them the results of this. Mm-hmm. Like the place where it is absolutely clearest to me is obviously in the grants team, right? Because they're saying, oh, we're going to move into a more consultative model with the clients. And I think it's really important that we see that if we're working as clients in that way as consultants, that we have this advantage and that we can say, because lots of people will say, oh yeah, like we really work with you as partners, we're really interested in tailoring stuff to your needs, blah, 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 blah. And then what you end up with is a very off-the-shelf piece of work. And actually, for me, this is about, if you want the client to feel the sense that you care about their stuff and to take that away and to believe that you're smart and committed and confident and sincere, you don't say to them, let me just send you this document, remind you that we're smart and committed and confident and sincere. You do it. And then they're like, I love working with you guys, you're amazing, right? So it's happening now.
Go on. So I'm with you on that. I think once you have the back end sorted, people that actually have designed a framework with that in mind. It's the delivery of the results. You don't ever tell a client that you're committed and serious and thinking or whatever, because it just comes across disingenuous.
Yeah, so that's, I didn't mean as in like you openly shout about it. I was just thinking more as in how it would show rather than not in a
Well, I think it just does.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
fair.
we've all had
It's-
good and bad
It's
experiences.
simple timekeeping, or you tell someone you're going to phone at 3, you phone at 3, or you say you're going to be in a meeting at a certain time, you meet them at a certain time. That's what we're talking about. Fantastic presentation, I love it. I just didn't think it highlighted the tools that we're referring to. So I think it's a great presentation, but I just want to sort of, and as I've said before, which is, this is what we're trying to do, this is a competitive advantage, this is how I think we can deliver it. And it's that sort of, that final close of the strip is what it's missing.
So on that, Andrew, sorry I can't see the folks, but you're basically saying, because this is how open culture is delivering competitive advantage for us, and as a company we're kind of struggling at the moment to say what is our competitive market, our advantage in the marketplace. What you're basically saying is, instead of it being this is how we're going to compete externally because we don't have that answer now, or is what you're trying to say is that we're so, we grow like an organism and things just kind of have offshoots and we jump on things and we evolve in different ways because of our culture? Is that what basically you're saying? We will find our own competitive advantage because of the way that we operate internally? Is that kind of...
I think, that definitely fits into what I'm saying. It's not the whole of it. Like, the kind of key thrust for me really here is about saying that open culture encourages to this kind of practice of wholeness. Like, Reinventing Organizations says that wholeness is one of the kind of key pillars of teal organizations. And I argue that, particularly in the kind of service knowledge work business, but actually I believe in any business where you have clients, that practice of wholeness internally gives you empathy and confidence, and that allows you to work more effectively with the client. There are also ways in which open culture and our ability to kind of embrace change and evolution in the business allows us to find the ways that we should innovate and the new products that we should offer and the way that we should tweak our current product offering. But I'm not saying, that open culture is about just saying, oh, these things will just happen, it'll just occur. I do believe that we need to put some structure around that work and help us do it in a kind of systematic way.
The funny thing I found about that story is the chap who spoke to the lady about the food company. I don't think for me it wasn't he turned around and said, oh, if you're 100% transparent and do this. He spotted a situation, saw an opportunity, and looked to her and said, you packaged it up and went, do this, and this is how I see your USP. I don't know, if somebody else had got up, maybe it would be a different solution, maybe it would be this, but what he did is saw the opportunity and told her how to maximise on it. That's how I saw that playing out more. It was somebody sort of stepping back. So if say she'd got up and she'd had a perfectly good time at school, and she had a great experience sitting down at dining, maybe it would have ended differently, maybe it would be something else. But what he did is he evaluated it and went, to do the best out of this, if you do this, this and this will get you this. And she did it, and she ran the play. Go on, sorry, just.
That's right. I think I've got something in terms of some links back to that as well. So my own take on all of that was kind of like, in order for us to find our competitive advantage in what we can actually be most profitable, most successful for, a lot of it, as I kind of was saying before, it comes back to thinking about what you care the most about and what you want to spend all your energy doing. So for that woman, it was like she really cared about that thing, and that whole presentation on people don't buy what you do, but why you do it. It's always thinking about, why do we do this? Why do we still attach to it? Why is this so important to me to do this thing? And focusing that energy on establishing that bit.
But it also did have a little bit of a hint of a psychic as well about it. It was a little bit, oh, do you not see? This is your whole reason. This is the reason you got here. It felt a little bit, I don't know. It's a little bit. When you can put something straight into a model. It just felt a little bit like that, where you latch on things. you know, I'm thinking of a name. Do you know someone called John? You know John? Great. It felt a bit like that. It didn't. I don't know. I'm convinced what you're saying. I'm not convinced on what.
I mean, I'm relaying like third hand the story, but essentially the point was she had gone on this CEO boot camp, right, for the week, and that like clearly something was not as she wanted it to be in the way the business was going. She was worn out, uninspired. She wanted some help.
Yeah.
And during the course of that workshop, it happened to come up in the discussion about what might be in your shadow, this thing, and he coached her to see that there might be a link between this thing that she had been hiding from herself and the business that she had founded. And it was a link that clearly was sufficiently meaningful for her that by embracing that link and by embracing that part of herself and by becoming more whole, by becoming more authentic, she was re-inspired, and her passion for the business and her passion and inspiration was kind of rekindled. So I'm not suggesting that everybody has to go back and find out, how their trauma brings them to where they are now, but by embracing the whole of ourselves, by embracing the fact that, like, things like the practice of check-ins, like, one of the reasons why we say, yeah, check in your feelings, bring your feelings here, is because it's like, the more whole you are, the more confident, the more authentic, the more able you are to, get shit done in a really powerful way.
I completely get how like a backstory can help sell what you do and who you are and why you're there, and I think that everybody here kind of gets that. It's a really powerful thing that clients can really grab hold of as well. I think the problem that we have here is that we don't really have that particular story as to we spotted this and we've done this particular way, because there's a lot of different competitors doing very similar things. So on the surface, when you look at a company like GrantTree, all of this stuff can be bubbling down underneath, but a client may not see the value of it or anything until they're much more ingrained in our services and how we operate. Like how we can put that more to the forefront and really engage them with something which compels them to be drawn to us. That could be more about how we can realise our competitive advantage for our culture.
We're talking about, because essentially what we're, if we want to use this in the marketplace, the way that we have to use it is we have to talk about service. The quality of service that you will receive is exceptionally high, right? Because as you say, people aren't going to know for themselves actually how good the service is until they're in the middle of it. So when we have to compete on cost as well. But one of the things that I'm really keen that we take away from this as an idea and work with us as a business is that if we want to use open culture as part of our marketing, the way that we use it is by saying, we have really exceptional service, I
thought that open culture, we're not supposed to be using it as part of our marketing. I thought the idea was supposed to support what we do, not lead what we do.
Exactly, but if we say to people, hey, we have really exceptional service, come and work with us and you'll find the client relationship is the best client relationship you've ever had, or whatever it is we say, something actually more intelligent and smarter piece of marketing than that. And if they want to say, oh yeah, well everybody says that, why is that true? We can say, well, because of the amazing back end. So you say to people, here are the amazing results that you're going to get, and they're like, well, how do you actually get those results? You go, oh, well, because we've got a super back end and it does some magic. And you're like, all right, okay, that's marketing.
This is the tricky thing, is that every single one of our competitors is saying we compete on service. What we're saying is we compete on service is because of this thing you don't know about, which is our culture.
I've got something which might help.
Oh, sorry, yeah, please.
So just before we move on to Jason's thing, I think that's kind of true what you're saying in terms of we don't have that clear story. But what we actually have, although it's not clear and abundantly known, there is something there. It's probably more about bringing it out. Because I did chat to Dan and Cal about this, and obviously they were kind of in a situation where they had a really good idea and thought this would be financially attainable, which it did, and they put all that hard work and energy into it. But then sort of like a couple of points Dan made was like, there's never really two founders, there's really one, and then another co-founder. So the founder is Power, and then sort of honing in on the reasons why Power started the company and sold all these tax credits before we even had the ability to do it all, and all the energy around that. Yes, there's financial incentives, but it's not just that. There's a lot more to it. To put all your blood, sweat, and tears into that idea, there's got to be a reason why that sort of thing, and sort of honing in on that and get
See what customers really want from us, and then to really hone in on doing something very well, which would give us a competitive advantage. So we can say, we know you care about X, Y, Z. We do this incredibly well because of this, and you can make it something incredibly tangible that you can put in front of their face, rather than kind of on the surface just being very similar, and then having to engage with us in you know, basically you have to sell them in order to realise, give them this benefit. It's not enough. We can't pull out enough at the moment to really be like, this is our culture. Like there's some things that are implicitly applied, like when they engage with us. Like, I completely get that. We're not corporate, we're not this, we're not that. But there's just not enough nuggets that we can really put on the table and say, look, this is us in a nutshell. This is why we're different, and this is why we're, you know, valued at this or whatever.
we need to get the question answered of why do we do this work. That question, I mean, everyone will have different ideas and it'll kind of stem from different thoughts and all that. But if we can hone in on that, why we actually do it, and sell that, that's a strong message. It's like,